Erin, what are the most important things in a marriage?
Of course, there's many different important things in a marriage, but one of the most important things is being able to communicate. You have to be able to communicate with your partner. You've got to understand different communication styles, and you also have to be patient and be willing to work on understanding how it is that you communicate together. To me, those are communication skills, and patience are way up there. Then also in a marriage, it's important to also have shared interests. You need to have things that you want to do together and plan to do together and have a good time being together as a couple doing these activities. At the same time, you also have to very much have your own individual desires and likes and activities that you like to do, and be free to do them in the relationship, allowing each other the freedom to be yourself. So
with communication, it's important, I think, for people to be aware of being a little bit too selfish and taking the other person for granted. Is that a problem that occurs, and where communication will play a big part in helping people bridge the gap?
it absolutely can, knowing that there is a withdrawal and a pursuit type of relationship style, like somebody really wants to talk and the other person doesn't. Understanding that there could be patterns that go through the family of this. Perhaps the husband does not want to speak about personal issues, and that was something that his father did, that was passed down from his father, and it's just a trait and something that needs to be explored. But being willing to work through those and think about those things while you're trying to communicate is always important.
Yeah, and can a person push too hard to get some communication going with their partner? Can they push someone a little bit too hard who perhaps doesn't want to speak?
Oh, sure they can. Sure they can, and they will retreat and they will run, and it very well could be disastrous for the relationship.
Okay. Another question that I see a lot is, what are the steps to rectifying an unhappy marriage?
There are many, many different steps, and as a counselor, I know that each couple that I talk to are going to have different steps. However, some of the common ones are very often you need to be open and you need to be willing to work on the issues that may be at hand. Oftentimes there's one partner who will want to work on things and another who has already checked out, and at that point it's very difficult to come together and make a plan to move forward if you're not open and willing to work on the marriage. Then you're going to have some issues. And sometimes it's really, really difficult to acknowledge that there is a problem. And so, yeah, those are really important steps. Being open, being willing, and acknowledging that there's something that needs to be done.
What about the situation where one person, admits their marriage is not a happy one, but they're afraid to approach their partner to get some dialogue going for fear of hearing what they don't want to hear?
That's a possibility. However, if you're feeling that you're not happy and you're unwilling to do anything about it, all that's going to perpetuate is continuing to be unhappy in your relationship. You've got to be open, and you've got to be willing to work on things, and that is part of it, is that confrontation, whether you do it on your own or you do it with help in therapy or even family support. It's never an easy thing.
No. Okay, another question. What are the most common marriage problems?
Oh, there's all sorts of different problems that you could run into. Just running through some notes that I made here before we go on. one really early issue in a marriage that you can find, especially if the couple is young, is disengagement from your parents. So if you have a hard time separating from your mother or father, then that can cause problems in the marriage. That the infamous in-laws, and it is often more common for the well, no, I'm going to take that back. It's common both ways, for both the male to stay with the mother, and then also for the female not to want to leave the comfort of her mother. It is one of those things that can cause problems in the marriage. If you are trying to start on a new relationship in a new way on your own, clinging on to the past can make things very difficult. Another common problem is disagreements around money. I know that is a very, very common problem. Maybe you have different trends in spending patterns. Maybe you've been taught differently about how to manage your money. Or maybe you just have different goals and you've never actually sat down and talked about it. All of those things can cause stress and problems in the marriage. A big one is different cultural expectations. What if you have different ideas of gender roles and you have not sat down and discussed that? Maybe the male is more traditional and the female is not. That's going to make it difficult for both of them, because they're not going to want to put up with the differences in their understanding of what it means to be a husband or a wife. And the last thing I'm going to say that is a very common marriage problem is secrets. Keeping secrets.
That's a big one. Getting back to the money situation, you get debate on this. Some people say it's okay for a couple to have separate bank accounts, and others say no, you should have joint bank accounts. I mean, is there an easy answer to that?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. I think that each couple has to come up with that on their own. Do you work and pile your money together, or do you separate who pays for what? I think it just comes down to the couple themselves. What do they want to do? Do they want to be completely together like that as a team, or I guess work as a team in a more separate fashion, if that makes sense.
Second marriage problems present a different set of issues than first marriages. So, what are they? Well, here's a list of second marriage problems you should be aware of before you tie the knot. 1. Combining a household with children from previous marriages. 2. Dealing with intrusive ex-partners. 3. Finding a balance between sharing the kids with an ex-partner. 4. Putting the past behind you. 5. Sharing financial resources. 6. Hanging on to old secrets. 7. Commitment. Resisting the escape clause. That's just a short list. The last one is interesting. Resisting the escape clause simply means making a commitment to ride the highs and lows of the marriage. One of the biggest issues with marriage the second time around is you've been through a divorce and become a little more lax in your commitment levels. You've divorced once. It didn't kill you, so if things get problematical in this next marriage, you may be thinking you'll just get out again. That type of thinking is going to doom your second marriage to failure before it starts. If you're already thinking like that, you haven't committed to make the marriage work whatever it takes. Second marriage problems can be more challenging? Second marriage problems are challenging. Two people thrown together with at least one having already been down the road of marriage before. Let's look at the two main issues with a second marriage: kids and ex-partners. It's likely kids from a previous marriage will be involved on one side at least. That's a challenge in itself. If kids are involved from both sides, then the chances of issues developing just increased significantly. Will the kids get on? Will the respective partner show more favor to their own children? Who can discipline who? How often will ex-partners be involved? The ex-partner can be a huge issue. There's obvious jealousy concerns from the respective partner. Then there's the issue of sharing kids' time between partners. Do you invite the ex around for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the kids' birthdays? The list of problems just grows and grows. In one case, close to romancerepair.com, A woman's new husband and the ex-partner hit it off like best friends. Now they are regular golfing partners, not to mention sharing Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners together. Weird, but it happens. What do you do in a situation like that? Pray. Seriously, it's working out fine, and the people involved have come to a mutual understanding. If things start to go awry, then they will make some big decisions. Someone is going to be hurt. What about children and ex-partners? Marriage expert Erin Montgomery says the new set of issues in a second marriage can be tough to overcome. She says a major concern with many couples is a fear of combining households. There's a strong chance the two people getting married do things in different ways, and with the added responsibility of blending the kids into their new environment, problems can occur quickly. Erin says, number one is going to be, what if you have children in a previous relationship? Or, how are you going to be able to combine the households that have already been established and created? And just who is going to be responsible for disciplining the children? She says, things like that are very difficult to navigate and can cause a lot of problems. And then you've got the issue of the ex-partners. How do you respond if your husband or wife is talking to the ex often? Is it because of the children? Is it not? You've got to keep those open lines of communication. Montgomery says, you've got to talk about what's going on, and that goes back to not keeping secrets or not clearing up secrets from your previous marriage. You just have to be open and honest with each other and willing to talk about what you're doing and why. What's the key in preventing second marriage problems? The key here is to be prepared before you walk down the aisle. Communication needs to be present from the moment you decide to get married second time around. No, it won't solve all the possible issues that may occur. Marriage is not supposed to be easy, but at least by talking about what to expect, a couple will go into their second union with eyes wide open. Something that worked beautifully for my second marriage was getting a second set of eyes on our situation. I arranged a series of sessions, 3 in total, with an experienced counselor. He was an associate pastor at our local church and didn't sugarcoat what we would expect. He was absolutely right, and what could have ended up being a quick second marriage meltdown was averted very early. It was the best thing we could have done, 16 years later, and we haven't missed a beat. If you go down this route, though, make sure the counselor is experienced and knows what they are talking about. It makes a big difference. And certainly ask them not to sugarcoat things. Meanwhile, there are signs of a bad marriage you should look out for if your relationship with your partner isn't going well, or even if it already has gone south. If any one of these apply to you, then maybe it's time to get some help before it gets worse. Just remember, 1 or 2 of these signs in isolation doesn't mean a marriage is bad. It could be easily rectified with some well-worn advice. But when several of these are in play, then there is cause for concern. Here are 13 signs you should look out for. 1. You're always fighting over something stupid like who left their socks on the floor or what kind of cereal they want for breakfast. 2. Your partner doesn't listen when you talk to them anymore. They just don't care. 3. You feel as though you have no friends anymore. All your old ones seem to be avoiding you now. 4. You can't stand being around each other anymore. There seems to be nothing good between you two. 5. You've been arguing so much lately that you haven't had sex since last week. 6. You keep asking yourself, why am I still here? 7. When you were first married, you thought you'd never leave them. Now you think you'll never stay away from them again. 8. You find yourself talking more than listening to people. 9. You start thinking about getting back together with someone else. 10. You're spending most of your free time alone instead of hanging out with your family and friends. 11. You try to make up for lost times by spending money you don't have. 12. You stop doing fun stuff with your kids. Instead, you sit home watching TV all day long. 13. You're beginning to lose interest in everything except your own problems. Some of these will happen during the course of every marriage. Most times they can be fixed. It's amazing what seems like a calamity to some couples are seen as an easy fix to someone looking in from the outside. But when they persist, it could be time to get some help from a trusted advisor like a marriage counselor.
Okay, another question. What are the problems that couples face in a second marriage, second time around?
That does bring another unique set of issues. Number one is going to be, what if you have children in a previous relationship? How are you going to be able to combine the households that have already been established and created? Who's responsible for the disciplining if you've got stepchildren? Things like that are very difficult to navigate and can cause a lot of problems. And then you've got the issue of the exes. How do you respond if your husband or wife is talking to the ex often? Is it because of the children? Is it not? You've got to keep those open lines of communication. You've got to talk about what's going on, and that goes back to the secrets and things like that. You've got to be open and honest and willing to talk about what you're doing and why.
There's a situation of a person who's remarried, and her husband's ex really hasn't kind of disappeared because they have a child between them. So the child, who is now an adult and has her own kids, wants her mum to come to things like Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? Or, I mean, is that something that's isolated to each individual case?
I think so. I mean, there's going to be some, second marriages where the husband and wife are very close, and that ex-husband may get along just fine. There could be somewhere the ex-husband does not get along with either the ex-wife or her new husband. I mean, it depends on what level of drama you want at Thanksgiving, I guess, and the relationships that have been formed over the years between the exes and the new spouses.
Yeah, and another situation that I know about is a guy who's married second time around, and his new wife's ex-husband is still in pretty close contact with her, but he now has formed a close bond with the ex-husband, and they do a lot of things together, and it's causing friction.
I can understand that. I mean, what if they just identified really well, but at the same time, you have to understand how the wife feels about that. Is she comfortable with him being around? Or I don't think I would want my exes to be that close, because I don't necessarily want them comparing notes or telling stories or things like that. I would be uncomfortable. So that's just a personal.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, but it's a great plot for a movie, isn't it?
It'd be interesting. Yeah, for sure.
Another question I see a lot today, women who are looking for ways to get their boyfriend to marry them. I mean, is that kind of poking the bear too much? Should you try and force or get someone to marry you?
I wonder about that. I wonder about forcing somebody or coercing somebody into marriage. If they are not ready and willing to commit, and they do commit, how strong is that commitment? And what are your motives? Why do you need to have a husband right now? What is wrong with just a strong relationship without the legal ties? Are you putting the cart before the horse? What about, establishing those communication styles? What about working through all the issues as a couple before you get married to make sure it's a secure and really what you want to do? What if you get married too fast and you find out that he's got a lot of things that he didn't tell you about and that you now don't like? There's so many different possible scenarios that can happen if you don't take the time to get to know somebody as thoroughly as you could before marriage.
Yeah, that to me would fall under the short-term thinking category, where I hear a lot of women say, look, I just want to experience my own wedding day, and they don't think beyond that. I mean, is that kind of a little bit dangerous?
I believe it is. I think that if everything is the Hollywood glamour, but behind a wedding itself, that's that's a very stressful experience anyways, being, the wedding itself, but what happens afterwards? And if you don't have the equipment to work well together after that marriage or after the wedding, what are you going to do? How are you going to move forward? Wouldn't it be more prudent to have those steps already taken before you get to the point where you say, I do?
Mm. And do you have any advice for women who, I guess men and might fall into this category as well, who go out and talk to psychics and people who cast spells? I mean, is that kind of getting into more dangerous territory?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, there is the possibility of soulmates and drawing your soulmate to you, but having it pointed directly at somebody in specific, that impedes on their free will. And but that's speaking as a psychic and working outside of those realms as a marriage counselor that
Mm-hmm.
I do. Yeah, so impeding on somebody's free will makes things pretty dicey. I mean, would we want anybody to do that to us? Fall back on that golden rule. I certainly would not want to coerce somebody into something that it's not really in their plan. It could cause pain in the future.
Next question, reasons for marriage counselling. So are there specific reasons that people should seek, a third party to talk to?
I think that people have different ideas about what counseling can do for them. But if you have tried to communicate with each other and you're still not getting it, you're still not able to get your points across, and work through things, then a marriage counselor can certainly help you with those communication styles, slow you down, explore the reasons why you may be getting angry or defensive when it's not called for, or whatever is going on. You can explore different attachment styles. What was your relationship with your parents that is causing you to have difficulties here in this currently relationship? Or even exploring those different cultural values, which I think that a lot of people take for granted, because each of us has grown up in a completely different cultural world, and to be able to explore those together and look at the patterns through the different generations, things that have trickled down, and understand perhaps why you behave a particular way and why you expect your spouse to react, but they don't react that way, and just taking that time. And I think that counseling can really help those things. It broadens your understanding of perhaps how you became who you are and how to move forward together.
Do you think couples get into a stale situation where they can't see the forest for the trees and the counsellor can give them that 1,000-foot view?
I think that's a really good analogy. I think that is very, very poignant. There comes many times in like the growth of a family where there can be problems, such as just starting off, the beginning of having children and expectations around who does what, and the in-laws really come into play there. What do you do when you're fighting because your adolescents want to move on and grow up, and you have disagreements about that? Or what if what do you do after the kids are gone? How do you reconnect? All of those things are very common, and probably most families go through them. But if you don't realize that they're there, the counselor can help normalize that, and you can resettle and redirect.
Yeah. And the last one on this, are all problems solvable through marriage counselling?
Are all problems solvable through
Mm-hmm.
marriage counseling? No. There's going to be problems that you want to have solved, and the spouse is absolutely not going to change, and so yeah, probably not.
Next question. A big problem I see with young people, especially that are working towards their marriage, and everything is peaches and cream and great, but when they become married and suddenly it's just them, are there things they should be doing before they actually get married, that they understand what they're going to face when they're actually married?
I think that is very much falling on those family patterns and understanding who they are as a person, um, having their own personal goals. You've got to have goals, and I think it goes for an individual as well as for a couple and their decisions of what they want to do in their marriage. Do we want to have children? Do we not? How many children do we want? When do we want to have them? All of these decisions are possible to be made there at the beginning. Let's set a goal. Let's work towards it. Don't do that. Yeah, I can see where you would struggle just in trying to figure out what it is that we're supposed to do. Yeah.
Mm. The spotlight is on a couple leading up to their marriage, and a lot of couples will kind of be seduced by this, and then when it's just them, and it's just them to figure stuff out, they seem to get into trouble.
They do, probably because they don't have that. Well, they don't have all the necessary. Maybe the families backed off. All of a sudden, you don't have the support that was around you at this time. But remembering that the support is right there if you need it. Yeah, but then having a goal. What do you want to do next? Do we start a family? Do we continue our college and get careers? Am I going to support you while you go to school, and and vice versa? Those things, and just taking that time to map that out is crucial.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So is pre-marriage counseling very important?
I certainly think it can be. I think it can be. I think it can, and it can eliminate a lot of the struggles that people will go through when they find that they're in that situation where now they're married. Now what? If you've thought about it and you've taken the time to work together on all of these things, what you see in the future, then yes, I think premarital counseling is very intelligent direction to go.
Okay, this next question is surrounding domestic violence. So if a marriage has a history of domestic violence, should the victim leave?
That's certainly one of the options. And the number one thing is maintaining safety. You need to be safe. Doesn't matter which, partner is being abused, and oftentimes it's both of them. I think 50% of the couples who experience domestic violence, there is violence coming from both sides. But number one, safety. Are you safe? Number two would be getting the individuals, both of them need to be in counseling to work through the issues that's going on. It can be intensive if you want to stay in that situation. It can be intensive. And that's only if both partners are willing to work through what is happening. And that's going to include the perpetrator understanding that what he is doing is wrong and being willing to work on that and change. If that person is not, then I don't see that the pattern would stop.
Mm. What about when there are children involved? It just seems to make it harder for a person to leave.
It can definitely make things difficult. Once you're in a domestic violence situation, the violence is, it can be physical, it can be mental and emotional, it can be financial. You can be cut off from all your friends and family and have no access to money at all whatsoever. And so what are you going to do? How do you get out of a situation like that? And reaching out to therapists, to hotlines, to shelters, those places can give you the information on what is available for you if you need to find safety for yourself and your children.
Yeah. Would it make sense before going to a therapist, perhaps to talk to a trusted friend, maybe to get some advice on what direction to take?
Yes, if the friend understands what domestic violence is. One of the things that you will see with domestic violence situations time and time again is the victim going back and going back and going back. And a friend or a family member who loves you can get very frustrated and tend to push away, like, I can't do this anymore because here you are going back into danger, and it hurts me to see you that way. And a therapist or a counselor is going to understand that pattern and probably have more advice for you in that situation.
Okay. Next question. Relationship advice for women. What would be your top 5 pieces of relationship advice for women?
Top 5 pieces of relationship advice for women. This was not an easy question for me to answer. I had to sit and think about this for quite a while. Number 1, you got to be true to yourself. Do not compromise what you want in your life for yourself or in a relationship just to say that you are in a relationship. I see that time and time again in my personal life, with friends, family, and then at work, with all the individuals that I have as clients. I really want to have this relationship. He may do things I don't like, but at least I have somebody. I'm like, oh, okay, if that's what makes you happy. But personally, being true to yourself, making sure that your needs are met, and those are things that are very important. Another bit of advice is you're not going to change them. You're not going to get anybody to change unless they're willing to change on their own. But you can't go into a relationship saying, I like this person except for this little bit, but I can work on that and help him change that. No, it's not going to happen. Another big thing is it is okay to say no. Women tend, through American culture, and I don't know, maybe other cultures as well, but we are taught that we are to be the ones who are, I'm looking for the word.
Submissive?
Yes, submissive and nurturing and over helpful, and we're the ones that are supposed to bring the comfort and fulfill the needs and things like that. And so oftentimes it is hard to say no, this does not serve me. No, I don't want to go with you. But saying no is strength for sure. Another bit of advice is do not overthink things. Do not overthink things. I see this again, time and time again. People are playing chess, with thoughts. Well, he said this, but what did he mean? What are the outcomes that could happen if he said this? And my thought was like, whoa, he probably just said it and didn't think anything further. We can't know that. We cannot play those kind of mind games, and it can lead to anxiety and all sorts of things spinning out of control when perhaps what he said didn't mean anything further than what he said. The last thing is you need to find happiness within yourself, because if you're not happiness within yourself, who you are, and your life as it is, you're probably not going to be happy in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I perhaps could even add another one on the list, and I see it a lot, and it happens on both sides, is partners, and women in particular, gossiping about their partners. Because, if you want to make it a team thing, the last thing you want to do is be putting your partner down to people who really aren't involved in your marriage and kind of making them look in a bad light, where perhaps you should be lifting them up.
Absolutely. To me, that situation would be, am I justified in feeling that he is not fulfilling his roles, or is he not doing what he's supposed to do? I feel like he's not performing, right? He's not contributing, whatever the complaint is. Instead of going to your friends to get that confirmation of, yes, there's a problem there, why don't you say, hey, you know what, when you don't come home and contribute to paying the bills, I feel like you don't have me as a priority. Take it to the source.
Mm-hmm. Are there rules you should follow to experience a happy marriage? Yes, there are. But the truth is, there are no shortage of rules you can apply to making your marriage a happy one. But please don't get hung up on rules. If you do, then you'll always be searching for the secret to making your marriage a happy one. Rules for a happy marriage include a forgiveness, telling your partner you love them daily, even having a team mindset. Just remember that this is a team game, and once you become individualistic in your marriage, it's in trouble. My number one rule for a happy marriage: be open and honest with each other in everything. That includes finances, flirting episodes at work, or God forbid, if you accidentally break or lose something of sentimental value to your partner. Another important ingredient to a happy marriage is having respect for each other. You should not only love each other, but you must respect each other. For example, have you been guilty of gossiping about your partner to your friends? If you answered yes, then stop it. Are you guilty of criticizing or putting your partner down to your friends? Again, if the answer is yes, you need to stop. You've got to be your partner's biggest fan. If you continue gossiping or criticizing them to others and they find out, the door opens for resentment to creep in. And that usually means it's game over. When I learned how important it was to respect my wife, my marriage strengthened tenfold. Everyone has a circle around them that no one should invade without permission. I estimate that if you put your arm out and then do a 360-degree turn, that's your personal circle. A woman gives a man permission to enter her circle. She trusts him to respect her space. She lets him into her private area. He reciprocates by loving her for trusting him to be part of her personal space. It's the same in reverse. That's a pretty powerful ingredient for a happy marriage. Two individuals who fall in love, enter each other's circles, and then become a team with one joint circle of personal space around them. They love and respect each other and each day, and they fortify their circle. Relationship expert Erin Montgomery says, being open and honest with each other lays the foundation for other rules to come into play. Once openness and honesty is established in every area, then most of the other rules take care of themselves. Montgomery has 5 rules for a happy marriage. She says couples would do well to write these down and put them on the fridge. They are: 1. Be open and honest. 2. Communicate with intent. 3. Practice active listening. 4. Supporting and building each other up. And 5. Allow space for personal growth and compassion for one another. Montgomery is very adamant, though, what the number one rule of a happy marriage is. She says, be open and honest. You've got to be willing to talk about it, and you've got to be willing to say exactly how you feel. She says, you can be tactful, but if you hide things or don't express things, you can't expect the other person to understand or to know. She reiterates, that is number 1, the importance of communicating with intent and listening actively. I recently saw a meme that contained a powerful message. It said, what if I told you I already told you and you didn't listen? That's powerful and says a lot. Montgomery says, communicating with intent and being an active listener are crucial to creating a happy marriage. She says, you've got to communicate with intent and you've got to have a reason behind your communication. If you're trying to get somebody to understand there's a problem and you want it addressed, you have to sit down and actually have a conversation about it. Meanwhile, complaining about the problem or gossiping about it, whatever it is not going to get you what you need. Another big one is practicing active listening. This isn't easy, but it's crucial to maintaining harmony between you and your partner. If your partner comes to you with one of those problems and says, I'm really struggling with this, you've got to sit down and really listen. And that means sitting and listening to what they say. It doesn't mean just sitting and hearing what they say and formulating what you're going to say next. Please resist the temptation to do that. That could mean you're missing the point and it could lead to another argument. So, how is your marriage doing right now? I hope you're watching this video simply because you're looking for ways to strengthen your marriage. If not, then we assume you're having issues. Have you tried to sit down with your partner and communicate with intent what your issue is? If you have, and it didn't achieve much, then it's possible the problem you're having has got to a stage when you need an intercessor. Someone who can give you both a 40,000-foot view of your marriage. I say both because unless you both commit to speaking with someone, then this will all be a waste of time. Whether it's a trusted friend or a professional counselor, you both need to commit to solving your problem. On the other hand, If you're about to get married or newlywed, then remember the 5 rules for a happy marriage. Start with being open and honest. This lays the foundation for the success of your marriage. And remember what we said about respecting each other's personal space. It takes trust to allow someone into it. Respect that trust and be grateful they chose you to share that space with them.
Okay, what would be your top 5 rules for a happy marriage?
Top 5 rules for a happy marriage. Number 1, be open and honest. You've got to be willing to talk about it, and you've got to be willing to say exactly how you feel. I mean, you can be tactful, but if you hide things or don't express things, you can't expect the other person to understand or to know. That is number 1. Number 2, you've got to communicate with intent. You've got to have a reason behind your communications. If you're trying to get somebody to understand that there's a problem and you want it addressed, you have to sit down and actually have a conversation about it. Complaining about it, gossiping about it, whatever it is not going to get you what you need as far as the changes in the relationship. Another big one is practicing active listening. If somebody comes to you with one of those problems and saying, I'm really struggling in a relationship when it comes to this, you've got to sit and really listen. And that is sitting and listening to what they say, not sitting and hearing what they say and formulating what you're going to say next. Just don't do that. That means you're missing the point. If you're just looking for your next argument. Another one is, helping each other achieve your dreams, both together and individually. Support your partner in whatever it is that they see as important in their lives. Help them, support them, lift them up.
Mm-hmm.
And number 5, I put down, allow space for that personal growth and compassion for each other. And, because we all throughout life grow and learn and adapt and change, and understanding that we are both individuals, even if we are in a partnership. There's got to be that flexibility and strength with that growth.
Yeah. I've always loved the idea of date nights, couples having designated date nights. And I wrote an article not too long ago about a date night that my wife and I had a few years ago, and it was just a spontaneous thing. It was probably the extreme date night. And we just decided one day, let's just jump in the car and head somewhere and just keep going and see where it leads us. So eventually, we were in South Georgia and we ended up in Orlando. So we had no luggage with us. We didn't take anything with us. So we thought, well, we'll go out and grab some stuff. And we were there for 3 days. It turned out to be an expensive date night, but by golly, did it reinvigorate our relationship?
Mm-hmm. That's great. And taking those specific moments to just say, let's just do you and me.
Mm-hmm.
You and me, we're going to go and do something. And I think that it's really important to do that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What would be your top 5 marriage self-help books? I know a lot of people rely on books, and but there's probably is a problem to that as well, but we might talk about that in a moment. But what would be your top 5?
Top 5, the number one that came to my mind immediately when you had asked me that is the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Understanding how we all experience and express love differently can really help expand our understanding of our partner, because they may not have the same language as we do. I love that book. I use it all the time in practice. The next one that I think is important is the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman. Gottman's done so many experiments and on couples and how they communicate, and hooking them up to electrodes and everything that
Wow.
that I believe what he's come up with. The next book I wrote down was Hold Me Tight, 7 Conversations for a Lifetime of Love by Dr. Sue Johnson. And I believe she's one of the creators of emotion-centered therapy. So, and so that's one of the most evidence-based couples therapy there is right now. Emotion-focused. Oh my goodness. I'm sounding like the student that I kind of am. Another one I wrote down was Wired for Love by Stan Tatkin, and just understanding, how the brain works when it comes to relationships like this. And the last one I wrote down is definitely more on a spiritual bent, which is the direction that I personally tend to go, and that's The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Mm-hmm. So self-help books are great, but I think where a person could get themselves in trouble in their relationship is going down the self-help book route, but doing it on their own. Learning stuff where their partner is unaware of, and then they are trying to apply what they learn to the marriage. I mean, to me, that's kind of just going down a little bit of a dangerous route.
It very well can be, especially if it comes out of the blue and, there's a specific technique that you're trying to apply and your partner's like, why are you doing this? I don't understand. And especially if they don't even know that there's a problem. And then all of a sudden there's solutions being applied to a problem that they didn't even know existed. That can be alarming.
It's probably something couples should do together.
I agree. Absolutely.
What does having a troubled marriage actually mean? A troubled marriage can mean there's infidelity going on. It can mean there's domestic violence happening. It can even mean there's financial issues affecting the relationship between a husband and his wife. But what about alien or paranormal interference? Is that a real thing? So, what do you do when there's paranormal interference in a marriage? Well, if you doubt this is a reason a marriage could be in trouble, think again. The paranormal could mean anything from aliens, to ghosts, to witchcraft, to psychic episodes. So what about alien interference? We're talking about those of the little green men variety. You won't hear about it unless you move within the contact experiencer circles. An ET contact experiencer is someone who has experienced an alien abduction. In fact, it's someone who has been in contact with aliens either through forceful means or a benevolent situation. After performing over 100 interviews with contact experiencers just in the past month, it is obvious that someone going through benevolent or malevolent paranormal contact puts stress on the rest of the family household. But that's if they share what's happening to them. If a person is going through alien contact and shares it with their partner, the reaction can vary. You'd think they would be understanding, but in many cases they aren't. Usually, the first reaction is, what will people say? So you suddenly have the seeds for a troubled marriage to develop. Marriage expert Erin Montgomery is a contact experiencer herself. In 2020, she released a landmark book titled Dirty Little Secret: Confessions of an Alien Contactee. Montgomery showed amazing courage in revealing what had happened to her, and she's determined to help others going through the same experiences. Montgomery believes there will come a time when alien contact experience will be normalized. At least that's what she is working towards, citing the millions of people who are having contact experiences around the world. And it's in the area of a troubled marriage or a troubled relationship that she is hoping to make a big impact. So, would you believe your partner? If they admitted to alien contact, Montgomery says many issues are instantly created when a contact experiencer admits to their partner what's been happening to them. It's a lot for someone to take in, and most times, it's time itself that will be the biggest help here. That's time to understand what's going on. But the problems start when the contact experiencer gets the impression their partner doesn't believe them. Two people on different pages, and someone's integrity at stake. It's a recipe for a troubled marriage disaster. Montgomery says, one thing you're going to run into is when you believe and understand that you've had experiences of this nature, where you're being abducted or you have contact with ETs, but your partner doesn't believe you. She says, that can affect many different areas of your relationship, and that includes the creation of secrets. Secrets like, this is happening to me, but I can't speak about it. She says, these secrets can fester and grow in a relationship, creating an environment where you do not necessarily feel safe being yourself and being truly honest and open. So what do you do when there are paranormal roadblocks involved? Montgomery says she has experienced it where she didn't say anything. In her second marriage, she didn't reveal any of her experiences until the moment she discovered a very large pattern which was marked on her back. She says she had to explain how that happened, but initially, he was more fascinated than he was angry. Could you relate to this? How would you explain something like this? It's almost impossible without looking to a paranormal explanation. The thing to remember here is, the contact experiencer is just as, if not, more confused than their partner. Imagine yourself leading a relatively normal life with no drama, and then suddenly, you're abducted by entities from another world and taken on board a spacecraft. If it's a malevolent experience, then you'll end up with plenty of trauma. If it's a benevolent experience, you'll more than likely be encouraged by your visitors to share what you've seen. These are situations facing millions of people each day. The former director of the Mutual UFO Network Experiencer Research Team in Florida, Kathleen Martin, said in a 2120 interview that more than 100 people were contacting her Florida office each month. She said her team were caring, compassionate, and non-judgmental. They listened to experiencers giving support and information. And they provide advice which includes where to get advanced help or where to go to meet and join with other experiencers. She says the number of experiencer support groups is growing quickly. That's because what was once considered an area where the number of experiencers was low turns out to be the opposite. Martin says the number of people having alien encounters today probably number into the multiple millions around the world. So, is your marriage in trouble because of ET influence? If you are experiencing alien interference in your life and haven't spoken to anyone, including your partner, then consider contacting MUFON's Experiencer Research Team. Meanwhile, what is Erin Montgomery's final word of advice if you're going through this and want to avoid a troubled marriage scenario because of ET contact? She says, firstly, you're going to have to feel comfortable talking to your partner about what you're experiencing. But without open communication lines, this will be difficult. She says, you've got to have those open lines of communication. You need to be seeking out support from other people who have had similar experiences. And that could be key to helping you get through this situation.
Right, now we get to the last question about experiences. So, Erin, do you come across conflict between experiencers and their partners?
I can only speak about my own experiences. At this point in time, I've put out feelers to see if other people are experiencing these things as well. One thing you're going to run into is when you believe and understand that you've had experiences of this nature where you're being abducted or you have contact with ETs, and your partner does not believe, that can affect many different areas of your relationship, including the creation of secrets, like this is happening to me, but I can't speak about it. And so you're creating secrets which can fester and grow in a relationship, but then it also, creates an environment where you do not feel necessarily safe being yourself and being truly honest and open.
Yeah. Is there a good way to handle this for an experiencer?
Good way.
Do they just keep quiet, or do they perhaps try and break it to their partner slowly?
I think that it would be this is tough. This is taking like marriage counseling up a notch. What do you do when there's paranormal involved? I have experienced it where I didn't say anything. In my second marriage, I did not reveal any of this stuff until the moment I had a very large pattern of, it wasn't really a bruise, but it was like a mark on my back. And so then I had to explain how that happened. And thank goodness he was more fascinated than he was angry with that. That was a violent marriage, so it kind of compounds things, but it was more fascinating, and this was 5 years down the line instead of talking to him about it at first. And it was my first marriage that I even found out and understand I was having these experiences, and I think that through my process of trying to come to terms with it, that is one of the reasons why it unraveled. Erin was getting crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and so that kind of unraveled the marriage itself.
Yeah. Can you get any help from the ETs themselves? I mean, if they're taking you and giving you these experiences, surely they can do something to help you keep your marriage on an even keel.
Well, I think that they do a lot of meddling and string pulling behind the scenes. And I have definitely seen with other experiences is you get drawn to somebody and you create a relationship, and yet you find out later that you really didn't have anything in common. However, the DNA of that person was really important for creating the children. And then once you have that understanding, yeah, and that could be part of why my first marriage fell apart as well, is like I understood that, oh, I see, they just wanted babies and it wasn't really my emotions that I was feeling. And I know that before I was married a second time and I was dating this guy, I was receiving information from the ETs saying, don't go there, don't do that. So I get it. I understand that they do have a lot to do with the manipulation of the emotions and the feelings of the contactees, and it's kind of unfair. I don't know if they understand the impact that they're having on the humans, that they are driven, just for those DNA samples. However, at the same time, yes, they do help us in our relationships, and they will bring people together that possibly have had past lives together, that the soulmate, the twin flame ideas. I know that I am currently experiencing that myself, and my partner and I met each other on a ship. We've been lifetime, multiple generational ET contactees, and honestly, I don't really see how any other relationship could work with a contactee. Somebody's got to have the intimate understanding of how this works to fully embrace it and be okay with it inside of marriage.
So as an experiencer, what would be your final piece of advice for this type of situation with somebody having experiences and their partner not knowing? What should they do? Keep quiet? Just using your situation as an example.
Well, you're going to have to feel comfortable talking to them about, what you're experiencing. And if you don't have that, those open communication lines, it's going to be very difficult. Hopefully that when you're not gone for a couple hours and they're asking you, where were you? Why were you not in bed? What's going on? But you've got to have those open lines of communication.
Yeah.
And seeking out support from other people who have similar experiences. That could be key right there to helping you get through the situation.
Yeah, I understand. It just must be a stressful situation for the experiencer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Who do you turn to? You would think that you could turn to your spouse as your number one supporter, but if they don't believe, if they can't believe, or if, you feel completely unsafe with that, what do you do? Yeah.
Seek out an individual that you trust, whether it's, by all means, contact me. Look for Yvonne Smith. Kathleen Martin is a good one. There are several different contact support groups that are available online. There's, through Facebook, there's things like Experiencers Meet. There's Chosen ET Contact. There's CERO, which is Yvonne's support group that she started many, many years ago in California, that has gone international. There are so many different places you can go for support.
Yeah.
And talk to people that actually want to support you instead of getting laughed at, for sure.
Yeah. Have other contactees who have been quiet and dealing with this on their own, have they responded to you?
Yes, I've had several people since the book was released only a couple of weeks ago. I've had several people reach out and tell me their stories, even people that I work with. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, this is great. And if you have any questions, just keep asking. You know, let's make this an open conversation. Let's work through these things.
Yeah. I imagine there would be a lot of people out there that think they may have had experiences, but are not quite certain, and maybe getting them confused with a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend regression therapy to people?
I do. And I am actually pursuing that myself. As you know, I have my master's in marriage and family therapy, but I've also done pretty extensive training in hypnosis. And I'm waiting for Yvonne to do a specific training on age regression for contactees. I don't really want to go there yet until I have the training, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And I think that it is good, and it can bring things to life. And maybe it was just a dream, but that can also set you at ease. But also understanding that a lot of my experiences feel like dreams.
Yeah.
It's important to explore those things.
Yeah. I read where you mentioned your desire to spread your story and help others, but you also said you wanted to normalize your contact experiences. Can you really normalize something like this?
With the number of people that were in that room of that conference hall that I was in on ship back in 2018, yes, I think it needs to be normalized. It may seem radical and just crazy at this moment, but it's not just a few people that are being taken. If hundreds of people are being taken to fill up an entire auditorium at a time on a ship, then yes, it is definitely something that needs to be normalized.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathleen Martin, speaking with her not too long ago, and I thought the numbers would have been in the thousands, and she said, we're talking millions. And of course, she heads the experiencer research team at MUFON, so she
right.
would know.
Yeah, and that gave me goosebumps when you said that. So that, to me, that rings truth. That's one of the things that my body does. When I hear truth, I get goosebumps. And so
yeah. I recently did an article about why aliens abduct people, and it got a lot of feedback. Some of it negative, most of it positive, but I just figured there's no definitive answer, because everyone seems to have a different experience, whether it be malevolent or benevolent, and people are being abducted by different races. And my theory is that each person's abduction experience is a personalized one, and one size doesn't fit all.
that would make complete sense to me. That would make complete sense to me, depending on where we are in our understanding of our contact, depending on how traumatized we have been, how far, have we worked through it at all. I think that absolutely it is very, very personalized. There are times when I have been approached by aliens at the foot of my bed, and they look like, this is funny, but they looked like the Golden Girls. And so the old Golden Girls TV show characters were standing at the foot of my bed, and I could just laugh like, oh, hi guys, wow. I know who you are. It's okay. And so I think that they're going to go into the mind of each person to use what they need to calm them down, or, to extract whatever it is that they need from that person. And so, yes, it's definitely going to be personalized. We're all going to have our each unique experience. And the times that I have been taken with more than one person, we all came out with something different. So, yes,
yeah. Did you coming out and talking about this affect your personal life much at all?
A lot less than I thought it was going to. I was scared. I thought I was going to be ostracized. I thought I was going to lose my job. I mean, there were so many different things. Working as a counselor in the mental health field, coming out with a crazy story. Mm-hmm. They could have just said, you don't want a crazy.
You should be sitting on the other side of the desk.
Exactly. And no, I did not notice anything. And in fact, most people said, oh, I'm glad you talked about that, because I've had this experience and this has happened to me. And so one of the things I have noticed is the people that this may sound awful, but the people that are not interested in like spiritual growth and things like that have fallen away from my life, and the people that resonate at the same level with me, that are ready to grow and let's do this together, they have come to me. And so it's like with each passing day, I have more strength around me, more beautiful people that I'm in contact with, and it just feels like an ever-growing, beautiful family with me.
Yeah. I was reading the preface of your book, and I loved what Yvonne Smith wrote. She said, "In my 29 years of working intimately with abductees and experiencers, I have known them to be the most honest and resilient people. For too long, they have remained in the shadows, both shameful and doubtful of their own experiences." So I agree. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of experiencers now, and honest and resilient are just perfect descriptions of these people. And but the other thing is that, and we're trying to get them to come out and, you know, and share their experiences, not necessarily with the world, but don't be shamed and don't doubt your own experiences.
Yeah, and that's a big one. And I think that was one of the, and it was through her coaching and through talking to her, often during the UFO festivals here, because she will do what is called an experiencer session, where people who have had experiences get together and it's like a support group moment. And I always make sure to talk about that, talk about my experiences and things in there, just because I know that it's important for people to know that you're not alone. And there's just been a huge surge of that lately. We have to talk. We have to be out there, and we have to be strong for the others who are not feeling as confident.
Yeah. My bit of advice for somebody who may be watching this and thinking about, talking about their experiences, the last thing you want to do is go to the online forums and join up and try and interact there, because I mean, I'm not long into this topic, having come from a professional background. But the one thing I've noticed with the forum, and I'm just amazed that these forums, and there are people in ufology groups that are poking fun at other people who have had UFO experiences, and I'm thinking, what the heck? Why are they cannibalizing their own? I mean, we're all fighting for the same cause here.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely suggest, stay away from the forums meantime until you've actually spoken to someone.
Right. Seek out an individual that you trust, whether it's, by all means, contact me. Look for Yvonne Smith. Kathleen Martin is a good one. There are several different contact support groups that are available online. There's, through Facebook, there's things like Experiencers Meet. There's Chosen ET Contact. There's CERO, which is Yvonne's support group that she started many, many years ago in California, that has gone international. There are so many different places you can go for support.
Yeah.
And talk to people that actually want to support you instead of getting laughed at, for sure.
Yeah.